following the advice of the Chief Medical Officer. We've seen Australia so successfully manage both the health and the economic impacts of this virus to the point now where we have avoided the fate of so many other nations. From the Treasury's perspective, and as Treasurer, we've always recognised that this is primarily a health crisis with a very severe economic impact. But as the restrictions have eased, the jobs have come back, so much so that 90% of the 1.3 million Australians who either lost their jobs or saw their working hours reduced to zero at the start of the pandemic are now back at work. And what we did see overnight was an upgraded economic growth forecast from the IMF. And to put it in perspective for you, the IMF is forecasting that the economy of Spain will contract by around 11% in 2020, that the economy of the United Kingdom will contract by 10%, that the economies of Italy and France will contract by around 9%, and that the economies of Germany, Japan and Canada will contract by more than 5%. The United States is expected to contract by 3.4%. In stark contrast, here in Australia, when we released the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook just before Christmas, the Australian economy has been expected to contract by just 2.5%. And that is a function of our effective management of the health crisis, but also the unprecedented financial and economic support being provided by the Morrison government.
Are you concerned at all the visit by this tour group would disrupt the first sitting week of the year?
Well, I'm very hopeful and optimistic about that first sitting week going ahead as planned.
The latest figures from the ABS show that out-of-pocket childcare expenses have returned to pre-COVID levels. Does the federal government need to do more to support those families struggling to cover costs?
Well, we provide billions of dollars every year in childcare subsidies, and we have increased that support to record levels. And that money has gone towards those who need it most. It's been based on income, and it has obviously had an effect in boosting workforce participation. And we saw pre-COVID female workforce participation reach record highs. So our support for childcare is substantial, and obviously through the COVID crisis we provided free childcare.
And I'll just add further to that I mean, out-of-pocket expenses today are still 1.8 percentage points lower than they were when we first introduced the new childcare subsidy, which was in 2018. And that's what counts as the out-of-pocket expenses. And we're proud of the system that we've put in place. It's over $10 billion of direct support that goes towards the childcare system, and that obviously does support particularly women's workforce participation, which, as the Treasurer said, is at record levels.
Damage has doubled since the 1970s, it could grow further. Are you concerned about the impact of climate change on the economy's bottom line in the future?
Well, climate change is real, and that's why the Morrison government is focused on reducing Australia's carbon footprint. And based on current estimates, Australia will beat its 2030 targets by more than 400 million tonnes. And we've seen a significant transition across the energy sector. So much so that in Australia, about 19% of our electricity is being generated across the NEM by wind and solar. This compares to about 11% average across the OECD and less than 10% across the rest of the world. We're seeing billions of dollars, around $9 billion a year being invested in renewables across the sector. We have the highest penetration of household rooftop solar in the world on a per capita basis. 1 in 4 households have rooftop solar, and so the transition is underway. The market is determining that change. What we have done is committed to technology, not taxation, when it comes to our new investment technology roadmap, and that is designed to not only reduce household expenses with lower electricity prices, which is happening, but to boost the reliability of the grid, and that's why we're supporting, for example, more gas into the system as a form of baseload power, but also reducing our carbon footprint.
President Xi Jinping says that big nations should not bully small ones. Do you find that a somewhat ironic statement given the experience that Australia's had over the course of the last?
Well, we agree with that sentiment. The big nations should not bully small ones, but there seems to be a bit of a disconnect between the words and the actions. The reality is Australia has been on the receiving end of some pretty harsh actions when it comes to our trade, but we won't compromise on the national interest. We won't compromise on our values. As you know, China released a list of various demands that they had on Australia, but those are non-negotiable issues for us. The fact that a politician elected democratically into the parliament should have the right to speak as they see fit. The fact that we are taking decisions on foreign investment that are very much in our national interest, and of course on human rights, we'll continue to speak out when there are injustices, as we've done in the past, as we'll do in the future.